Hi everybody! I am going to make a little video to go over the new material for today's lesson. This is for Thursday the 20th and Friday the 21st. We are starting the Odyssey by reading the Invocation, which is how the story begins, and we are going to do very briefly Book 1. Alright, so you have reading questions for this. If you missed class for whatever reason, what we're doing at the start of class is we're doing a little review quiz, and we're doing that on Menti. You won't be able to do that because we're doing it live. It's kind of basically like a Kahoot. So instead of doing that, you can just go through your questions from last time and just find the answer to this, reviewing Epic and Epic Hero, reviewing what Odyssey means, a long journey, reviewing the protagonist and antagonist. Protagonist is Odysseus, antagonist is Poseidon, Calypso, and Circe. We're reviewing the pattern of the origin story. The hero is born. The hero has an early obstacle, and then the hero reveals his or her powers. The palace seer predicted that Odysseus would be gone for 19 years and all of his shipmates would be lost. And then Odysseus led the Greeks to victory with the Trojan horse. All right, so then we have some new material for today. So, time for new material. All right, so we are starting the Odyssey, and the story of the Odyssey begins at the end of the journey. The Odyssey begins 10 years after the Trojan War, which lasted for 9 years. So what that means is that Odysseus has been away from home for 19 years. Now, if you need to pause the video so you can jot this down, that's fine. So the story begins 19 years after Odysseus left home, 19 years after he pretended to be mad and then had to save his son. And it is also 10 years after the Trojan horse. So at this point, Odysseus is probably in his early 40s. It's at this point in the story, when Odysseus has been away from home for 19 years, that Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, decides to intervene to get Odysseus home. So the story, the first book of the Odyssey, is about Athena going to her father Zeus and saying, hey, it's time for Odysseus to come home. But before we get into the actual story, Homer starts the poem with a prayer. Now, for this to make sense, we have to remember that Homer would have performed this poem orally. So he didn't write this down. Every time he told the story, he would be performing it live. So before he would perform, he would say a prayer, and he would pray to the goddesses of inspiration, the muses, to fill him with the story. And this prayer is called an invocation. So he's asking for the goddesses to fill him with the story so that he can then share it with the people. So an invocation is a prayer typically found at the beginning of ancient Greek literature where the poet prays to a muse to fill them with the story. So Homer is praying for divine inspiration. He's asking for help. He's saying, I didn't create this story. Fill me with the story so then I can share it with everyone else. Right, and the muses, there are 9 muses in ancient Greek mythology, 9 goddesses responsible for all types of artistic inspiration. But the one that Homer would have been praying to was Calliope, the muse of epic poetry. So this prayer would be directed to her, and you'll even see when we start reading, he says, sing in me, muse. The muses are the names of these goddesses. All right, so we're going to go to the virtual textbook. I'm going to read the invocation and a summary of book 1, and then we're going to look at book 1 in the graphic novel. All right, so our virtual text. All right, so the definition of invocation I just showed you is on page 42. Then I have picture of the muses on page 43. Okay, book 1, a goddess intervenes. But before then, we have we have Homer praying to the muses. Sing in me muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending, the wanderer, harried for years on end, after he plundered the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, while he fought only to save his life, to bring his shipmates home. But not by will nor valor could he save them, for their own recklessness destroyed them all. Children and fools they killed and feasted on the cattle of Lord Helios, the sun. And he who moves all day through heaven took from their eyes the dawn of their return. Of these adventures, Muse, daughter of Zeus, tell us in our time. Lift the great song again. So that's the invocation. That is Homer, the poet, praying to the muse to fill him with the story of this man who's skilled in all ways of contending. So contending, think of a contender, contest, someone who's skilled when it comes to like matchups, maybe skilled as a fighter, skilled in argument. This man is skilled in all ways of contending. He's a wanderer. He has been harried or tormented for years on end after he plundered, meaning like he destroyed, he tore apart, desecrated Troy. So this man is Odysseus, the protagonist of our story. So this is how Homer is introducing him, by calling him skilled in contending, calling him a wanderer, calling him tormented, admitting that he plundered Troy, that he kind of was the cause of this own situation he's in. It also says that he's seen distant towns, he's met distant men, he's been traveling, he's been fighting for his life and his shipmates' lives. So these are all the ways Odysseus is introduced at the very start of the story. So these notes are shared with you on Classroom, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them once I can get them open. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them, but if you look on Classroom, okay, I have to add my notes to this class. I have not done it yet, but I will add them. So if you look on Classroom, you will see in my notes that I have gone over this answer. So I will do that. Apologies. Let me pause this and get myself right. Okay, boom. Now those things I was looking for are now on Classroom. All right, so I'm giving you guys my notes because today's class we kind of have to move fast. So in case you get lost, I'm putting my notes right on Classroom. And so Odysseus is described in all of these ways. Okay, so you have access to this so you can use it to guide your answer. And then the invocation really accentuates that Odysseus is skilled. They call him a man skilled in all ways of contending, that he's brave. It talks about how he's been tormented and he's been fighting for himself and his shipmates for years. So it highlights his bravery, that he's a leader, that he feels responsible for his men. But also there's a little hint at his disobedience with the mention of like he plunders Troy and that his men are reckless. So it's mostly good things, but there's a little bit of bad. So that is the invocation, the starting prayer. Then the story begins with book 1, Athena speaking to her father Zeus. Now, at this point, the textbook that I got this version of the story from, it doesn't actually give us book 1, it just summarizes it, and it actually summarizes books 1 through 4 in this paragraph. So I'm going to read you the summary, but then we're going to look at book 1 a little more in depth with the graphic novel because the summary is just so fast. I want us to pay a little more attention. So this is a summary of books 1 through 4 of the Odyssey. The story of Odysseus begins with the goddess Athena's appealing to Zeus to help Odysseus, who has been wandering for 10 years on the seas, to find his way home to his family on Ithaca. While Odysseus has been gone, his son, Telemachus, has grown to manhood So if we remember to the backstory, Telemachus was just a baby, but Odysseus has been gone for 19 years, so Telemachus is 20. And his wife Penelope has been besieged by suitors wishing to marry her and gain Odysseus' wealth. So all these men are essentially harassing Penelope like, your husband's been gone for 19 years, don't you need a man? The suitors have taken up residence in her home, so she has a big palace, so they've just kind of moved in, and are constantly feasting on the family's cattle, sheep, and goats. They dishonor Odysseus and his family. Taking Athena's advice, so this is where the summary jumps over a whole ton of stuff, but essentially what happens is Athena persuades her father to help Odysseus get free, and Athena's like, okay, well, while you're working on that, I am going to go down to Telemachus, disguise myself, and say I'm an old friend of Odysseus, and inspire Telemachus to search for his father. So that's what Athena's doing. So Athena goes down to Ithaca pretending to be Odysseus' old friend, inspires Telemachus to go look for his father, and Telemachus goes on a search trying to find his dad. Meanwhile, the suitors who are left behind decide that when Telemachus comes back, they'll just kill him. Why not? All right, so that was a lot of summary. Before we look at book 1 in the graphic novel, let us look at this. Okay, I didn't really go over that much. So, all right, so these are the questions that we're going to answer with the graphic novel. All right, graphic novel time. Now, this graphic novel that I'm about to be showing you is actually the one that you got in your supply bag. So I suggest just opening it and looking at it in there. Also, we are not going to read the entire story for interest of time and just all sorts of things, but I do suggest that if you are interested, you can read the entire story in the graphic novel. So I'll preview what that's going to be about after we do today's reading. All right, so you should have had this graphic novel in your supply bag. If you did not, please let me know and we'll see how we can get it to you. All right, so this is the graphic novel's depiction of the invocation. All right, so then we begin on Mount Olympus, the home of the ancient Greek gods. So Mount Olympus was a mountain, but it was enveloped in clouds, and so the gods kind of live on this mountaintop up in the clouds where the humans can't see them. Zeus and Hera are sitting on their thrones while Athena addresses them. Here's Zeus, here's Hera, here's Athena. Zeus is talking about the humans and saying, these mortals do love to blame their sorrows on us, don't they? But they cause most of their own troubles. Look at Aegisthus. Forgot to look that up. Killing King Agamemnon after we warned him not to. What did he expect? This is Zeus. This is Hera. And then Athena. It's true, father. He was justly slain by young Orestes. But what of that great man Odysseus? Does he deserve to live out his days trapped and groaning on the island Ogygia, far from home, held there by the nymph Calypso? What do you have against him, father? So Athena is saying Odysseus is trapped on this island, Ogygia, by a nymph Calypso. He's groaning, he's tormented, what is your problem with Odysseus? Why is he trapped there? Why can't we help him? Why is he being punished? Zeus responds, my child, what strange remarks you let escape from your lips. Could I forget that wily hero Odysseus? You know I bear him no grudge, but Poseidon does. Hates him for blinding his son Polyphemus, the Cyclops. Now, quick note, because this begins at the end of the story, we are told right away that Odysseus has done this. The story is going to flash back and we will get to see the whole exchange between Odysseus, the whole battle with Odysseus and the Cyclops. But come now, let us take up the matter of Odysseus' return. Poseidon must relent. He cannot thwart the will of all other gods. So essentially Zeus is saying, oh no, I haven't forgotten Odysseus, and no, I don't hate him, but Poseidon does, and that's why he's in this state. But you know what? He's been punished enough. Let's get Poseidon to relent. Let's save Odysseus. So essentially Athena has persuaded her father to help her save Odysseus after he's been away from home for 19 years. "Oh, father, if it now please the blissful gods that Odysseus should reach his home again, then let Hermes go and tell Calypso to send the hero home." So this is Hermes, and he's the messenger god. He's the one who's often sent down to earth, and he's depicted as having wings on his shoes, and he runs over the water and over the land to deliver messages from the gods. Athena continues, "For my part, I'll go to Ithaca and see his son Telemachus. I'll rouse the boy's courage to resist that pack of wolves, the shameless suitors who harass his mother Penelope and consume his wine and cattle, feasting in Odysseus' palace." All right, so Hermes is sent down to talk to Calypso, and Athena heads to Telemachus in disguise. So this is Athena appearing in Ithaca at Odysseus' palace, but she is disguised as an old friend of Odysseus. All right, so that is the end of the reading for today's class. If we look at the questions. All right, so who is intervening in his life? Athena is. The gods live on Mount Olympus. All of this is on Classroom for you. I know I'm going fast. All right, Athena asks Zeus to help Odysseus. Odysseus is currently trapped on Ogygia. He's being held by Calypso. Zeus says he doesn't hate Odysseus, but Poseidon does because Odysseus blinded his son. Zeus sends Hermes to free Odysseus, and Athena's going to find Telemachus. Now, this is optional. This is something you can do on your own time if you find it interesting. So we're not reading the entire Odyssey. When we start back on Monday, we're going to start with Book 5, which is when Hermes arrives at Ogygia to convince Calypso to let Odysseus go. That's where we will start reading. What we're skipping over is basically Telemachus' journey to find out what's going on with his father. So if you wanted to, you could look at these 40 pages in the graphic novel. 40 pages seems like a lot, but it's a graphic novel. It doesn't take that long, but it's up to you. And so you will see Athena meeting with Telemachus in disguise, Telemachus calling a big meeting in Ithaca to announce his plans, Telemachus journeying to King Nestor to ask about his father, and then he goes to Sparta to meet King Menelaus and ask more about his father. So Telemachus is on his own mini Odyssey while Hermes is going to free his father. All right, so that is pretty much our lesson for Thursday and Friday. If you have any questions, please email me or send me a message through Classroom as always. And I hope you're excited. Can't get the video to stop. I'm clicking on the right thing this time. I promise. There we go.